I'm dying. You're dying. We're all dying. And I want to extend my life as long as possible. And so a big part of transformation for me is longevity. Our minds will manifest what we believe. What you believe about your health will be true about your health.
Where do you stand on this law of attraction versus change your subconscious and everything will flow?
All I know is when I visualize future outcomes, they tend to happen. If you believe you're going to be successful, your odds of becoming successful go up. If you believe you're going to find the love of your life, you are more confident when you go out on a date. You are more charismatic. If you believe that you're going to have a great relationship with your child, you will be taking better actions when you connect with your child. So it's all about the power of belief and faith.
How do you see AI affecting the world in the next, say, even 24 months?
We are going to come to a world where people will only have to work 10 to 20 hours a week, or not at all, because AI is going to make work so effortless. I believe in human nature. I believe if we work less, we're going to have more time for creativity, for deep connection, for spending with our kids, for exploring nature. All of us have gifts that we want to give to the world. Things are going to get faster and faster. If you're a creative person, it's going to be easier and easier to build a business and make money. What's going to be the competitive advantage is your mindset. And this is really why I'm building Mindvalley, for giving people the right mindset to survive in this new world.
The world is changing. Inspiration is everywhere. It has never been so easy to connect, share, and bring people together. We're learning from others and finding the best in ourselves. Challenging our beliefs, sharing our vulnerability, overcoming our fears, transforming ourselves so we can transform the world. How far can we go?
This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is... This is London Real. I am Brian Rose. My guest today is Vishen Lakhiani, the entrepreneur, best-selling author, and motivational speaker. You are the founder and CEO of Mindvalley, a personal growth education platform with more than 20 million students in 195 countries. Your first book, The Code of the Extraordinary Mind, has been translated into 25 languages and reached the #1 spot on Amazon, while your second book, The Buddha and the Badass, topped the charts at the Wall Street Journal. Your mission is to bring Mindvalley into the global consciousness by impacting 1 billion lives across the planet. You believe that by focusing inward, anyone is capable of achieving their goals and manifesting their dreams. Your latest book, The 6-Phase Meditation Method, illustrates how to effectively use meditation in the modern world and unlock your hidden potential. Vishen, welcome back to London Real.
Thank you, Brian. It is such an honor to be here. And before we get started, can I acknowledge you for something?
Please.
So I was on your show 6 years ago, and you brought me in to talk about a project I was then creating called Mindvalley University. It was a conference where parents and their kids get to learn together. So the parents will be in one room, and the children were also in classrooms designed for kids. So kids as young as 3 get to learn with their parents. Now, it was a crazy idea, and you were the first person to acknowledge it and give me press on it. And I really wanted to thank you for that. You brought me here on London Real to talk about that project, a project that many people said was crazy, it wouldn't work, but you believed in it, you honored me, you put me on the show, and I just wanted to thank you for your kindness. I never, ever, ever forgot that favor.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate that. I remember you talking about that, and I've seen you set up these universities in cities around the world like Barcelona, and I saw that you bringing in with the children, and you've always been on the cutting edge when it comes to education. So I appreciate what you're doing as well, and I hope we're going to talk about gratitude as well today because it's so powerful. But I really appreciate it. I remember you coming on the show in the old studio. We had this amazing conversation. I've been to one of your A-Fests since, and
it's always incredible watching what you guys are doing at Mindvalley.
Thank you, Brian.
And so I can't wait to talk about this stuff, and I want to get into the book, but I kind of wanted maybe to start and zoom out a bit, because it seems like you have had a connection to mindfulness from an early age. And for a lot of people that don't know that, guys our age, we grew up without the internet.
Right.
We grew up without YouTube. And so trying to get these ideas into your head was not an easy thing to do. Very difficult, in fact, unless you knew an uncle, or you were in the library, or you happened to be in a certain location. And yet it seems like you had an early experience that probably shaped the rest of your life, and maybe stuff we're going to talk about today. Right. So I'm wondering if you could talk about your introduction to the concept of mindfulness, which back then was really foreign.
Absolutely. So what happened was, I was 14 years old, and I was a really insecure kid. Now, the reason I was insecure is because I had a really bad case of acne, horrible acne, and I was made fun of in school. Now, the interesting thing about our minds is our minds will manifest what we believe, and we know this about the mind affecting the body. There's a whole concept called the placebo effect, right? Where doctors find that what you believe about your health will be true about your health. Doctors can often cause a healing from giving people a placebo, essentially a fake pill, but the patient's belief in the pill and the doctor causes the healing. So when I was 13 years old, something awful happened. I happened to look in the mirror as I was brushing my teeth, and I noticed a pimple. And I turned to an aunt of mine, because I was a kid, and I'm like, oh, I have my first pimple. And the aunt goes, well, congratulations, you're a teenager. And guess what? You're going to get more and more and more and more of these. And she was right. I believed my aunt because she was an authority. And before I knew it, my face was erupting in pimples. Now, I had acne for a really long time, for almost 5 years. I remember going to dermatologists, getting injections in my skin, and it was horrible, and nothing would solve it. But the worst part was the lunch line in school. And I remember there was this one particular day, I'm standing in the lunch line, and I have this big white boil on my face. And the kid at the back of the line looks at me and goes, you're disgusting. You're making all of us here not want to eat. And the other kid started laughing at me. And that was brutal. That was horrendous. Now, when I was 14, I was browsing through my dad's bookshelf, because I grew up in Malaysia. And in Malaysia back then, there were 3 television channels, maybe 4 or 5 American programs that you could watch on any given day, no internet. So I didn't really have that much to do. And I found this book called The Silva Mind Control Method. So as I flipped through this book, it was written in 1977, was by a Texan mind science pioneer called Jose Silva. And he had found that by getting people to relax and to go into what is called the alpha state of mind, right, which is a slowdown of your brain frequency, you could visualize outcomes and self-hypnotize yourself to change habits or even heal. So I was fascinated by this book. And it took me a while to master the techniques. There were no Silva method classes in Malaysia, so I couldn't enroll in one. So I had to read the book, try, read again, try. Now, the book was really an advertisement for his seminar. I couldn't afford to attend the seminar, so I had to kind of decipher his techniques from his books, and eventually I figured it out, right? When I was 17 years old, I had already had a steady meditation practice. And there, I learned a technique from Jose Silva, which is where you sit down, you get into a deep state of meditation, and you visualize your body healing using a specific sequence. I decided to apply that sequence to my skin, and in 5 weeks, meditating 3 times a day for 3 minutes each, I completely healed my skin. I'd had acne for 5 years, chronic acne. I healed it in 5 weeks, around 3 minutes a day, 3 times a day. And I was shocked. So when this happened, I decided to go deeper into what can I do with my mind. The next thing I did was I ended up imagining and visualizing myself representing Malaysia in the US Open Taekwondo Championships, because I was a martial artist. And that happened too. Before I knew it, I was in the United States, the Colorado Springs Olympic Training Center, fighting, representing my country in the US Open. That changed the course of my life. I now discovered that I could move towards goals, I could have control over my body, and that set me up for what would later be the launch of my company, Mindvalley.
Wow. I want to just pause there, because a lot of people are listening to this and they'll be like, yes, I believe that's true. And a lot of people are saying that can't be true, because Western medicine and everything we're taught as kids, and even in the mainstream, says
You can't do that. You need a medical doctor, you need a pill, you need a this to do that. And yet, we all know the placebo effect is real. And I remember there was a 60 Minutes episode and they were talking about this, and it's like the placebo effect is there and no one ever explains it. They just kind of go, oh yeah, that's true. But like, we know that the mind is powerful in all ways. And as a kid, my experience was my mom, I'm from California, so my mom was into some of these things, and I think she did the Firewalk experience with Tony Robbins when I was a kid, and so she was always saying, positive thinking, Brian. But then I was into science and computer programming always said everything is cause and effect. So I grew up in these two minds, Vishen, where I went to school at MIT and got an engineering degree and everything was the science. But as I get older, I realize everything you're saying is true. That the mind is so powerful and it'll bring us what we want. And how do you usually get people to step over and say, maybe that's a possibility?
Well, at this point, it's science. Okay, so I'll share a really interesting study. This was done by a doctor called J.B. Moseley, Moseley, and it was covered in the New York Times sometime around 2012 or 2013. So here's what happened. J.B. Moseley had a theory that the placebo effect was going to be able to help patients not just with, simple ailments like back pain, but with diseases that required surgery. So the disease he started to look at was arthritis of the knee. A lot of men, he found particularly US veterans, people who had served in wars and were now in their 60s and 70s, had a painful knee condition, arthritis of the knee, and it required going for surgery. So J.B. Moseley decided to do an experiment. He took 10 men who were veterans, and all of them were put under anesthesia. Now, 8 of the 10 simply had incisions made on their knee that were then bandaged up, right? So when they came out of anesthesia, it looked like they had had that surgery. 8 out of 10 had a fake sham surgery. 2 out of 10 had the actual surgery. Now, at the end of this experiment, 1 month later, all 10 men, 100% of these men, were cured of arthritis of the knee. So the 8 men who had a sham surgery somehow believed they had had the real surgery, and their pain disappeared. And this shows that the power of our mind is not just for simple aches and pains or for healing skin. It can literally heal aspects of your body that today might require surgery. And this baffled doctors. And so this has led to a lot more research in the placebo effect. And today, almost any medicine that is released anywhere in the Western world has to be tested against a placebo.
Wow. It's mind-boggling that can actually happen. Right. And it's still not really acknowledged by modern medicine.
Well, at this point it is.
Yeah.
It is, almost, because no drug can be released without a test against a placebo.
Right, but your doctor will never recommend this as a procedure. It's usually the surgery,
depends on the doctor,
the
right?
pill. Yeah,
it depends on the doctor. Unfortunately, in some healthcare systems, doctors are incentivized to overprescribe drugs. In certain countries, that's just where the economy works. But a good doctor knows that so much of healing has to do with a patient's belief and trust in the doctor, but also in the patient's own capacity to heal.
Yeah. What kind of 14-year-old kid dissects a book that's probably too complicated for a 20-year-old kid and then puts the practice into place for 3 years? Well, I mean, what were you like as a kid? Because that's intense.
Yeah, well, I grew up with a slight case of Asperger's, right? So because of that, I had difficulty connecting with people. I remember I had to read the book How to Win Friends and Influence People at least 8 times before my 18th birthday, so I could understand how human beings worked. But I was great at math, I was great at science, I had this brilliant brain. And so I just had a unique brain. I was not neurotypical. But because I didn't have that many friends, I mean, I was made fun of, I lived in a country where I didn't have internet until I was 19, didn't have too many TV stations. All I could do was read the books on my dad's bookshelf. My dad never went to school. He never went to college, but he self-educated himself by reading all the great works by people like Bob Proctor, Jose Silva, Wayne Dyer. They became my teachers because I had no other choice. There was very little to do.
Wow, that's fascinating. All right, so there's a lot of your dad in you as well. That whole because if you're around a parent that self-educates, then that just that gets to be in your DNA, right? It's just without even if it's spoken, it's like, oh, well, dad does this, and so I can do this too. So.
Right, I just wanted to be like my dad.
Wow. All right, so fast forward, you end up you go to Michigan, right? In Dearborn, right? Is that
in Ann Arbor?
In Ann Arbor, right.
University of Michigan.
So I spent the summer in Ann Arbor working for Ford Motor Company, and they stuck us in one of the high-rise dorms for that summer, so I got a touch from Michigan. But what an amazing place. And then you go out to Silicon Valley, you're working there for a tech company, and you realize that
you're having a stressful time and you realize maybe this is the time I go back into meditation.
Exactly.
Okay.
So when I was 19, I moved to the US. And now being a teenager, going to an American university, I got caught up in the culture of university, which was getting drunk for the first time, you know, like cramming for exams, doing other things that we shall not talk about on this show.
Football games?
and I lost my meditation practice.
Right.
I stopped. I just stopped.
Yeah.
And it was tough. I almost flunked out of school. My GPA, I'm not proud to say, was 2.54, just barely passing. And after I graduated, I moved to Silicon Valley. I borrowed $30,000 from my father, and I moved to Silicon Valley to attempt to start a small little software company. I had this idea for a certain type of community software. Unfortunately, my timing sucked. The dot-com bubble burst. Thousands of people were laid off. Then September 11 hit, and again, thousands of people were laid off. And the economy was so bad that no one was hiring. So I ended up sending out my resume to any job I could try to find on Craigslist, which was the job hunting site at that time. And finally, I got a job, but it was a dialing for dollars job. I had to pick up the phone and call attorneys from A to Z in San Antonio, Texas, and pitch them on the company's software. So it was basically cold calling, interrupting American attorneys in the middle of their day. And I can tell you it was an awful job because Texas attorneys do not like being interrupted by salesmen in the middle of a busy day. And after one particular day when I was told to F off, maybe for the 13th time, I fell into a depression. Now, I was not as deep into meditation then as I was as a 17-year-old, right? But I remember getting online because my life sucked. I was sleeping on a friend's couch. I had very little money in my bank account. And if I didn't close a sale, I didn't get paid. The economy was so bad, there was no base salary. I got on Google, and I can't remember what I typed in, but I was searching for hope. And there I see Silva Ultramine System. It was the updated version of that old course I'd taken years ago. Right? So I fly to LA, I take that seminar. I was the only person who showed up because they were not very good at self-promotion. I was the only person who showed up, so I had a one-on-one with the instructor. And I flew back to San Francisco and started work on Monday. Now, immediately, I started applying one of the techniques I learned in that seminar. And here, I ask for you and your viewers to have an open mind, okay? It was a technique that had to do with human intuition. So, the technique suggested that if we can get into an altered state of mind, now you can get into altered states in 4 ways: breath work, meditation, neurotraining, or plant medicine. But this was true meditation, a very specific meditation protocol that puts you into the alpha level of mind, but then takes you deeper to what is called the theta level of mind, where your brainwave frequency is 4 to 7 cycles per second. A usual brainwave is 14 to 21 cycles per second, so you're lowering your brainwaves quite significantly. And when you're at theta, you know you're there if you're meditating because your head kind of goes like that. Right. You're drifting off to sleep, but you can train yourself to be awake there. And when you're awake there, you're almost in this pseudo dream state, and these insights and impulses come to you. So what I would do is, now back then we used the yellow pages. I'd have to go to the San Francisco Public Library, check out the yellow pages for San Antonio, and then run my finger down. So rather than call names at random, I'd run my finger down, go to the theta level of mind, and just listen within. And every now and then, I'd feel an impulse. And it's hard to describe what that impulse was like. It feels almost like a little burst of joy in your heart. A burst of joy, a burst of hope. And as soon as I feel that, I would call that attorney. And an interesting thing happened. Okay, so as a salesperson, I kept an Excel spreadsheet with everything. You're logging everything. The number of cold calls you make, the number of times you get past the attorney's assistant, the number of times the attorney gets past 10 minutes on the phone, the number of times they ask for a brochure, the number of times you close a sale. Everything is mapped. Now, without any other factors changing, just using that technique, running my finger down, listening to that voice within, I doubled my sales overnight. So I started, I was thrilled. I went to my boss and he said, what are you doing? And I said, I think they call it intuition. And my boss said, nah, that's bullshit. But can you keep doing it? Now I started going deeper and deeper into other aspects of personal growth. Creative visualization, for example, where you visualize yourself hitting your goals. And again, I doubled my sales. Another technique was something called subliminal programming, where you visualize the person you're seeking to communicate with, and you set a simple prayer or intention that whatever is best for everyone concerned will happen. And again, I doubled my sales. In a span of 4 months, I got promoted 3 times, and I went from lowly phone rep to vice president of sales.
Boom, boom. And now you were back on track.
Back on track. All of a sudden, I was earning a decent salary. I remember moving into my own apartment, getting off a freaking couch. That was a big deal for me. And now the company sent me to New York City on the anniversary of September 11. So September 11, 2002, I was in New York City, and I opened up the company's office in New York City as a vice president. I was 26, maybe 27 years old. I was leading teams of men who were in their 40s. But I was able to do all of that because I trained my mind. I stayed with that company for about a year, 18 months. Then I decided to quit, become a meditation teacher, because I couldn't get one thought out of my head. Everything I learned in college, and heck, my education at the University of Michigan was great. Look, it cost me a lot of money, but nothing was as valuable as that one class that taught me how to go within. But I couldn't get it out of my head. How was I the only person in that class? So I built a website. I got the license from Jose Silva's family, and I did my best to explode these methodologies on the internet. I got reasonably successful. I started using Google AdWords to drive people to the website, and then I started selling out my classes. Then I started selling out other trainers' classes. Then I started selling CDs. Now this was 2003, 2004. And eventually, as I kept tweaking the website, it became the company that today is known as Mindvalley.
But at one point you decided that you wanted to go all in on that, because I think you were making decent amount of cash, enough to have your place in Hell's Kitchen in New York City, and you could have just coasted at that point. And I've heard you say a quote that you're not interested in people that are looking to build a career. You want someone who's on a mission.
Exactly.
When did Vishen decide, I need to take this to 1 billion people? Like what clicked?
So I think there's a really important idea here that I think might be useful to your listeners. It is the idea of Kensho and Satori. It's a Zen concept. And it comes from, this idea is articulated by the spiritual teacher Michael Beckwith. He says that we will grow in life based on 2 different ways of growth. One is Satori, which is growth through insight. Insight is when you meditate. Insight is when you watch London Real. Insight is when you read a book. You gain an insight that helps you grow. Most people, however, don't bother with this. The vast masses of humanity don't care about insight. They are too busy running the hamster wheel. And when you don't have access to insight, you often grow through Kensho. Kensho is growth through pain. So no matter what you want to believe, what often happens is that you end up in hospital. It's freaking painful. But you come out of there with new ideas on how to take care of your health. Or somebody breaks your heart. It is freaking painful. But you discover how you truly want to be in a relationship. Or a business fails and it's painful. But you learn how to be a better entrepreneur. Now what happened to me was the forces of Kensho and Satori hit me at the same time. In my company that I worked for in New York, the values of the company were not aligned with my values. I became the victim of racism. I remember another guy in the company, a senior salesperson, he had done some stuff which was unethical, and I reported him to the boss. He came to me, I had my team around me, and he told my entire team, if you quit working for Vishen right now, I will pay you 20% more. I lost half my team that day. It was pure manipulation. When I confronted him, I remember his words. You're not a citizen of the United States. You talk to me again, and I will rip your fucking face off. I went to the boss and complained. The boss said, not going to do anything. He closes more deals than you do.
Sounds like Wall Street.
Right,
yeah.
right.
Sounds like
So
New York City.
At that point, I decided, so that was Kensho. That was the universe, like punching me in the face. It was horrendous because I had to sit in that office. Half my team had moved to him. And okay, that's capitalism, right? He was paying more. But that guy mocked me every single day. Every single day. Now, what happened was he got found out for overpromising on the phone. He was fired. I stayed at my job. All those team members eventually came back because they knew that I was actually closing sales ethically. And I decided to, but I'd lost faith in the company's leadership and management. I applied the techniques I'd learned. I quadrupled my quota in November 2003. I went to my boss and I said, I quit. I won the Best Salesman Award that month, But I decided, but I wanted to do that for myself. I did not want to be a victim. So I won the Best Salesman Award, quadrupled my quota. I then quit and I said, listen, good luck to you guys. I need to start my own thing. But I didn't know what to start. And that's where Satori kicked in. And I'm sharing this so your viewers, as they reflect on their life, might be able to discern between kensho. Sometimes a punch in the gut can be what you need to make a better decision in life. But you also got to listen to your heart and not just wait for those punches. I remember I was meditating, trying to figure out what should I start. And one rainy day in New York, walking through New York in the rain, and I love walking in the rain because it's almost meditative, right? The idea came to me. Why don't I start a meditation website? I've seen how powerful this is, but not enough people were doing it. What if I could help popularize it? So I took everything I learned in sales and marketing, selling legal software, and I applied it to selling meditation.
Isn't that fascinating? What did Steve Jobs say? Connect the dots in reverse.
Right. Steve Jobs said in his famous 2005 Stanford commencement address, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect the dots looking backwards.
I'm starting to see your dots connect. I didn't know about that you had, optimized that website in 03 and 04. I didn't know you had been in sales. And this all now makes much more sense as how you created Mindvalley. Look, the meditation practice is a powerful thing. I don't think I've ever told this story, but the reason London Real exists is because of a meditation practice.
Really?
Yeah. So I was working in the city of London. I was very unhappy. I'd been here now, I think, 10 years working at this job. I was making a lot of money, and that's what I thought was going to make me happy all of my life. I was 40 years old, and I wasn't happy. And as an MIT engineer, I realized that my bank balance was going up every quarter because they used to pay us pretty much a fixed commission in the city. So I could see my balance going up every quarter. I was single. I didn't have any expenses. And I was like, yeah, but you're not getting proportionately happier. I was basically had one of those 2-floor flats in the cool part of town, no family, not many friends, and I was just kind of, drinking myself to death. That was like what I was kind of doing. And I decided to take a meditation course. And this is like 2010, and so there wasn't much online, there wasn't much on YouTube. And so I finally took, what's the meditation course with the mantra and the twice a day? I always forget the name.
Is
of
that
it.
Transcendental Meditation?
Yeah, Transcendental.
Right.
So I found a Transcendental class. I paid the fee, which was high at the time.
Right.
It wasn't crazy, but it was like 800 pounds or something. I went there, and they're playing these old video cassettes of the Indian guy who was dead, and then they said, we're going to come to this ceremony, and you got to bring 2 pieces of fruit and a handkerchief. And I was like, I don't know about this, but I already paid, so I'm going to do it. And I started meditating, and like 2 weeks later, I woke up one day and I said, Brian's not happy doing this job. Why don't you stop doing it? And literally, I resigned that month, and I didn't know what I was going to do, but I knew I didn't want to do that anymore.
Wow.
And at the same time, I probably had that other kind of learning, this whatever the one you're talking with, insight, because I was watching the
Satori. That was your Satori moment.
That was my Satori moment, and then I had been watching the Joe Rogan Experience at the time because I was a jiu-jitsu practitioner and a martial arts fan, so I knew Joe from the UFC, and so I watched his channel back when he was on Ustream on a sofa. Right. It was really bad, but I used to watch him before he was on YouTube on Vimeo, and it was the time, Vishen, when I actually had connection with usually a group of men talking for 3 hours about a topic like ayahuasca or a topic like, I don't know, Graham Hancock's Fingerprints of the Gods. And I thought, wow, I was hanging out with a peer group that I never could hang out with. Right. It was some of my best Sunday afternoons. 3 hours would end, and I'd be like, wow, that was special. And so part of me deep down was thinking, maybe I could do something like that. And the meditation kicked me in the butt and said, why don't you stop doing something you hate? And then literally 9 months later, I started London Real. That was it. I literally bought an IKEA desk, I bought some microphones, I bought some webcams, and I had my first episode at the old studio there. And that's how it happened. And it all started with that transcendental meditation.
Amazing. Our stories are surprisingly similar.
They are. You studied computer science too.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was also into martial arts like you.
You're in Taekwondo as well. So the meditation is super powerful. And you sound like you now have this like crazy meditation, like on steroids system with this 6 steps, because it sounds like you combine so many aspects. And again, we touched on gratitude a little bit earlier, but maybe we can go into what this new book is about with the 6 phases, because I have an academy, and in certain of my courses, I always get my students to try with this meditation practice. But with so many people you meet, they give you that cop-out excuse. I tried, I'm no good at it. I'm this and I'm that. And people don't usually go, a lot of times they can't grasp it. And I'm wondering, how do you usually get people to start that meditation journey, let alone go into the 6 steps?
Well, the first thing I try to let people understand is that there are 2 types of meditation. Okay, so let's say, now you're a martial artist. Have you ever gone for a yoga class and did you like it?
Yes, and yes, I did.
Okay, so you've tried yoga, you liked it. Is there any form of exercise that you do not like?
Exercise.
Any form of physical exertion that you do not like?
There's definitely some that I trend more to, but
and there's some that you trend less to.
Yeah,
right?
although some I appreciate more. Like I showed you the Ironman race I did. At first, I wasn't used to that. I was used to martial arts, but then I found those quite meditative. So on a 2-hour run, you go deep. So I don't know if that answers your question. But,
Well, you're a sportsman, so you probably love all forms of moving your body. But most people will trend towards maybe jogging or yoga or martial arts or tennis. Not everyone is going to like every form of exercise equally. But let's say you play tennis and you absolutely dislike it, or you do yoga and it just isn't for you. It doesn't mean that all exercise isn't for you. What people fail to understand is that there are thousands of modes of meditation, literally thousands of modes of meditation. I mean, this art form has been around for probably 3,000 years. But most of these practices can be divided into 2. There is hermetic meditation and then active meditation. Okay, so hermetic meditation is what you tried, TM. TM is a form of hermetic meditation. So it's the style of meditation that goes back thousands of years ago to ancient China, ancient India, and it is a practice where you sit still, you focus on a mantra, you may focus on your breathing, you clear your mind by repeating the mantra or focusing on your breath, and that's good for certain people. Now, however, many people in the modern Western world cannot do that type of meditation. It turns out more than 50% of people who try hermetic meditation actually don't go back to it. And 30% of people who try hermetic meditation fall asleep and think they're meditating. And this is where active meditation comes in. Active meditation is meditation protocols such as the Silva method or the 6-phase meditation, which I developed. So the Silva method is an active meditation because, in the words of Jose Silva, the founder, he passed away in 1999, it's not about clearing your mind. It's about turning problems into projects. Problems into projects. You have a skin problem, you turn it into a project to heal your skin. You want to get promoted at work, you turn it into a project to get that next raise or promotion, as I did. You want to compete in a martial arts competition and win, you turn it into a project to become a champion. And Jose Silva thought these tools to bring out the solutions to these problems. Tools such as tapping into your intuitive core, so you kind of get guidance on what direction to take. Tools such as a technique called the 3 scenes technique, where you visualize healing or you visualize yourself attaining a goal. And it was all based on the idea of being able to command your mind to get into this deep state of relaxation called the alpha and then the theta level. The alpha level is for visualizing, for reprogramming your mind, super useful for getting rid of bad habits. The theta level is for intuitive guidance. Now, active meditation is a lot easier for people to do because you don't clear your mind. In fact, your mind is constantly busy. It's constantly working on solving a problem. So if there's a nagging problem at work, you don't have to clear your mind about it. You bring it up on your visual screen, which is what you see when you're doing the Silva method, and you use certain techniques to turn that problem into a solution. Then you see the solution and you use certain techniques to make it so real, so powerful that you believe that that solution is inevitable. Now, after teaching the Silva method for almost 5 years and getting the rights to it too, so now it's officially on Mindvalley, I also developed my own meditation approach called the 6-phase meditation. And the 6-phase meditation is also a form of active meditation, but it's slightly different from Silva. So now let's look at active meditation, right? Active meditation, there are, again, 2 types. Think of these as 2 different tools. So I'm a big proponent of active meditation. As an entrepreneur with ADD, I can't clear my mind. I just can't. My mind is always racing. So I need to apply my mind to fix things, to solve problems, to create. And I'm guessing that you and some of your users might be the same, right? Now, within active meditation, there are 2 different approaches as well. So Imagine you have a house. Do you have a coffee machine in your home?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, do you have an electric drill?
I think there's an electric drill
Probably
somewhere.
not. You probably hire someone to drill.
I think there's one around somewhere.
So I have a coffee machine, I have an electric drill. I use the electric drill for hanging up pictures, but I'm not hanging up a picture every single morning.
Right.
I'm using the electric drill maybe once a month to hang up a picture or try to fix something, usually sloppily. But I use my coffee machine twice a day. Now, it's the same with active meditation. I use the 6-phase twice a day to put me in an incredible state of focus, of productivity, of happiness. The 6-phase meditation is a state change meditation. You're changing 6 particular states of beingness. It's like the coffee machine. The silver method is like the electric drill. It's like precision when you need to heal an injury, or you need to figure out the solution to an intractable problem, or you want to certainly get your mind to believe that a certain goal is possible. You use it as an electric drill. So these are 2 tools that I now teach, and you use them. They're both based on the principles of active meditation, an active mind at the alpha level of mind, focused on a problem, but you use them differently. One is daily, one is like a precision-guided missile.
Okay. Now, 6 phases. What does it break down? And it doesn't actually take that long because each phase is quite short, right?
Right. So the 6 phase is designed to be 15 minutes, 15 to 17 minutes. That's what it usually takes. But I believe that in that 15 to 17 minutes, you gain the same benefits as hours of regular meditation because of the precision protocols that are in play. So the 6-phase meditation is based on rewiring your sense of being to optimize 6 different aspects of being human. Now, these aspects look like this. The first is compassion and kindness. We started this interview with me sharing a story of your kindness. Kindness is such an important thing. And if we were able to train kindness as a muscle, not only do we go forth and make the world better, but we feel better in the world. We see other human beings with trust, with honor, with love, and it makes life so much better. So that's the first one. It's called the circle of compassion. The second phase is super simple to understand. It's a gratitude practice. Gratitude, according to science, is the human characteristic most associated with feelings of well-being. So gratitude is something you want to train, and like a muscle, you can train it. The third is forgiveness. In my book, I call this becoming unfuckwithable. Forgiveness means you forgive life and you forgive yourself for anything traumatic or troublesome that happened in the past. You know, there's a famous story about Nelson Mandela. I was just watching a movie about him on the plane right here, Long Walk Home. When Nelson Mandela walked out of prison, he knew that if he didn't forgive his jailers, he would still be in a prison of his own mind. And so he invited his jailers to come and break bread with him. Forgiveness frees you. But not only that, forgiveness has a strange biological effect. It actually improves athletic ability. It helps lift you out of depression. It helps you sleep better. It heals back pain. And I can go on and on and on in the science of forgiveness. So the first 3 phases of the 6th phase are compassion, gratitude, forgiveness. These 3 qualities are so important for putting you in the right state of mind. Overall, I call these 3 states the practice of blisscipline. The idea that the most important thing we can do on a daily basis is to be blissful. Blisscipline means that you are disciplined about your bliss. Blisscipline.
Okay.
So the first 3 phases are all about blisscipline, present state emotions. But now you go to the next 3 phases. And the next 3 phases are the phases of creation. Because in today's world, you don't just want to be sitting in a meditation pillow, being all blissful. We need to go out there. We need to create. We need to invent. We need to be entrepreneurs. We need to help heal the world. And that's what phase 4, 5, and 6 are about. Phase 4 is about seeing and visualizing your life 3 years out with vivid clarity, so it pulls you forward. Phase 5 is about commanding your perfect day. So your day unfolds in the right way so that you're moving towards your vision. And phase 6 is really simple. It is a prayer to God or whatever higher power you believe in to bless you and your day so that everything unfolds as it should be. This stacked together is the 6 phase meditation. And it's become really popular among athletes, among professional athletes. It's been written about in Billboard magazine as a meditation protocol used by many R&B stars. It's been blowing up. And so this year I decided to write a book about it.
Wow. And how do you time each phase, or do you just kind of go through it in your mind?
No, you go through it in your mind. Each phase is about 2 to 3 minutes.
Okay.
So the whole meditation, including the time it takes you to relax and then come out, is going to be about 15 to 17 minutes.
Okay. How do you have to come up with new things to be grateful for, new things to forgive, or can you repeat the old ones? I'm just curious. Just on some details.
So those are two different aspects, right? So let's first talk about compassion. So with compassion, it's always the same protocol because we have the same people around us. We have our teammates, we have our family, you have your wonderful children. I always start that phase with seeing the face of my daughter or my son, and you feel the love for them in your heart. This is a technique from the HeartMath Institute. And the scientists at the HeartMath Institute found that when we close our eyes and visualize the face of someone we love, it actually changes our heart resonance. You can measure heart resonance on your aura ring, but there is a real effect on your heart resonance just by seeing the face of someone you love. Now, as you feel that love in your heart, you go through a simple Zen Roshi practice called loving kindness meditation, and you expand that love into wider and wider circles until the love encapsulates all of planet Earth. Now, that's always the same because we have the same people around us, right? Mm-hmm. But when you come to phase 2, which is gratitude, it's good to always pick different things. I like to focus on gratitude from the last 24 hours. You want to focus on different things, and you want to go deep into the feeling, like really, really, really feel that feeling of gratitude. And it can be something small. It can be the fact that your child hugged you and just said something kind about you that morning before he left for school. But you want to really feel that. It causes an instant elevation in your feelings of bliss. There was a study done, I believe it was UCLA, or one of the universities of California, and they had 2 groups of people, a control group and a gratitude group. The gratitude group had to write down something they were grateful for on a journal for 30 days in a row. And what they found is at the end of 30 days, the gratitude group, even though it took them 1 or 2 minutes to write these things down, they were 25% happier. But the funny thing is, 9 months out, they were still happier than the control group, even though some of them had no longer practiced gratitude. Gratitude seems to have a long-term effect on happiness and a dramatic effect on happiness. 25% happier without 25% more money or 25% more possessions, just from reflecting on what made you happy the previous day. So that's gratitude. It's always changing. And then forgiveness, it depends on what you're trying to forgive. If it's something simple, you might fully forgive that act in 1 session. But if it's something traumatic, someone who hurt you way back in the past, it could take as many as 30 or 60 days to truly forgive that person. But you work at it, chipping away at the negative thoughts, bit by bit by bit, until it completely goes away.
That's super powerful. And do you ever, when you get grateful, do you ever get creative and think, I'm grateful for that person that yelled at me because I got to practice my composure? You know, I'm grateful that I injured myself in training so I can now be creative and find something else to do. Like, do you do things like that?
So one of the teachers I learned a lot from is the MBA professor Sri Kumar Rao. Right? Brilliant man. So he's been a great mentor of mine. He used to teach at Columbia, London Business School, Kellogg, and his classes were really popular. He brings ancient wisdom into modern business practices. And Sri Kumar Rao, I was just interviewing him, and he introduced me to this concept called Ananda. Ananda is a Hindu concept that means absolute happiness, absolute bliss. And he was talking about people who can be completely poor, living in abject poverty, but are absolutely happy. They are living in Ananda. And he was trying to dissect what was going on in their minds. And you touched it. Even when something is wrong, even in the presence of sickness, of poverty, you can choose to be happy. Rao, in my interview with him, shared the story of a rickshaw driver in India. Now, if you're a rickshaw driver, I mean, you're basically a human-powered vehicle. You're transporting goods around the city. You're earning really bad pay. And this rickshaw driver he met didn't have a home.
To continue watching the rest of the episode for free, visit our website londonreal.tv or click the link in the description below.